Where's the investigation into the conspiracy with Ukraine, Uranium One, or mishandling and destroying classified documents? We're not. Yeah.
Sean, the folks in this town have got the scent of blood in their nostrils, and they're targeted on the West Wing. They don't care about Hillary anymore. If she were president, they would be going after her.
All right, that's Patrick J. Buchanan, the scent of blood in their nostrils. Now, he said that to me Friday night when he was on Hannity, the television show. Glad you're with us. Hour 2, Sean Hannity Show, 800-941-SEAN is our toll-free telephone number. You want to be a part of the program. The man himself, he's a political commentator, author, syndicated columnist, senior advisor to Nixon, Ford, Reagan. And thanks for being back on the program, Patrick J. How are you, the original insurgent, sir?
Delighted, Sean. How are you?
Well, I'm good. I mean, when you said that to me Friday night, I really, it kind of stung. It kind of crept in, and I spent a lot of time thinking about it over the weekend. I know it. I talk about it, and it's just the way you laid it out, spelled it out, kind of bothered me because it's true.
Well, I think, Sean, the collision between Mueller and the president is now almost inevitable, and I can understand why the president is angry and outraged and exasperated. Look, this started as an investigation into the Russian hacking that I believe Donald Trump had nothing to do with. I don't think his senior aides had anything to do with it. And so at the same time, this has now metastasized into a small lethal group inside the White House, inside the administration, which is targeting the White House and the president himself under Mr. Mueller. And I think the president wants to see them focus really on the Russian hacking, where he did nothing wrong, but I think they're moving afield, Sean. I think they're moving into the finances. They're bringing in these white-collar criminal prosecutors and investigators. And so I think it's going to be an all-out press on Donald Trump and his White House. And I don't see how President Trump, given his disposition, is going to tolerate it.
What does that mean? I mean, because the analogy just doesn't fit when they say the Saturday Night Massacre and Archibald Cox, and I know the media is fond of using that analogy, but it wouldn't be applicable in this case. There are so many numerous conflicts. One has to worry about the investigative creep that we always see with these special counsels, and you know what? They've already moved on from the original purpose, well beyond the original purpose.
Well, let me say, Sean, here's what's going to happen, I think. First, I think the Attorney General has rightly had to recuse himself, even though the President's very exasperated with it. Secondly, Rosenstein appointed Mueller, former FBI director, and a real bulldog. Third, he's going to move beyond, and probably already has, simply the counterintelligence investigation into a criminal investigation. And then he's going to start issuing subpoenas like Cox did, Archibald Cox and the Saturday Night Massacre. And we offered Cox a deal. You know, we said, look, we're going to give you these tapes, transcripts of them, verified by Senator Stennis. Howard Baker and Irvin were on board. Everybody was on board. And Richardson was on board. And Archibald Cox was not. He said, I'm going to keep on issuing subpoenas until I get what I want. And so that was where we got to the point where we told the Attorney General to demand that he restrict his subpoenas or get rid of him. And Richardson refused to do it. Now, who is the President going to get now, Sean, to tell Mr. Mueller that you are investigating the Russian hacking and any cover-up of the Russian hacking, and that is your franchise, and that is it.
So then, assuming that this conflict occurs, I mean, what you're saying here is that, you know, there's a real collision coming. Well, how does that play out? Give me 2 or 3 possibilities, because I've got to imagine that's not going to end well for anybody.
It's not, but here's how I'm writing a column on it tomorrow. It's titled, Is Trump Entering the Kill Box? Here's what happens, I think. First, if Mueller defies the demands that he restrict his investigation, somebody's going to have to fire him. Who? Who's going to fire him? I think the Attorney General's not going to do it, and the Deputy Attorney General's not going to do it. He's already indicated he would resign rather than do it. And if the President fires Attorney General Sessions and puts in an acting Attorney General who does it, then I think that Mueller will defy them and continue on, and he will have to be fired. That will leave his entire staff right there inside the government of Donald Trump, and Trump will have to get a new Attorney General who will not be improved unless he agrees to name a new special prosecutor. So I don't see, again, I see that if Mr. Mueller is obdurate and insists on pursuing what he believes he ought to pursue, that he either is not going to be fired he's going to continue along that course, or he's going to be fired, and we're going to have a major firestorm that is not going to end well because we're going to get another special prosecutor or special counsel. So it is hard for me to see. You can see what is coming, and it is hard for me to see how it ends well for the president.
Mueller, with all his conflicts of interest, starting with Comey himself and the circumstances under which Comey leaked government material, we know that, to the New York Times through a friend of his, and frankly, we know now classified material. And that led to Rosenstein going forward with the special counsel because Jeff Sessions had recused himself. And then we find out he's hiring Hillary Clinton's attorney, for crying out loud. And then all these donors to Obama, the Democrats and Hillary Clinton. I don't see any sense of fair play on Mueller's part. I mean, just looking at it, Pat, it seems like he's out there and he's going to doggedly pursue this wherever it has to go till he gets people indicted.
I think you're exactly right. I think that's exactly correct.
But isn't it that he really wants his big target is the president, and if he can't get him, he'll get as much collateral damage as possible. And if at the end of the day, through all the subpoenas and all their hard work, and you and I both know that a lot of bullying tactics are used by some of these people.
Sure.
And perjury traps are set for these people. I mean, that we may end up with another perjury charge like Scooter Libby, who wouldn't give up the Vice President Cheney at the time.
I think you're exactly right. Look, Mueller, whatever you say about him, he's a gutsy guy, and he's a tough customer. He's not going to be intimidated by charges of a lack of objectivity or lack of neutrality. He's going to continue to pursue this. If he's told, you can't go here or there, he will decide on his own whether to do that. And if he does, look, I mean, Donald Trump's, as I say, I don't think Trump had anything whatsoever to do with the hacking, and even if he knew about it, which I don't believe, that it's not a crime.
So how do we now get into the finances, and what is this now, an attempt to get the president's tax returns that he never turned over?
Sure, they're going to find out what are his connections with the Russians. Did he make deals with him? Did they sell that one apartment they talked about? They get into that. They draw this out. There's another thing, Sean, that Donald Trump has been in a very rough real estate business, and he's played hardball up there in New York, and he's got a lot of enemies who know a lot of things. They're going to be up there sending stuff to the independent counsel or special counsel, dropping the dime on him, and some of those guys are going to start running down the leads. And they got a long time. I think a lot of them see this maybe as a year-long or even years-long experience. And I've never known one of these special prosecutors to be established and cheered the way Mueller is, who doesn't come home with a bag full of scalps.
Where's Mueller's sense of fair play? I mean, let's forget about what his own personal views are. I mean, doesn't he have a sense of responsibility to balance the people that he's hiring on his team? I mean, or is he just...
I think these guys, I mean, clearly, he hired these guys because he knows them and respects them, and whether they're Democrats or Republicans, and he's hired people who look like they're deadly serious and gone after somebody. Look, I remember, Bobby Kennedy, I can remember the Get Hoffa squad back in the early 60s, and they went after these guys and went after them and went after them. And I think what you're talking about is a major situation coming at the White House and the Trump family and the Trump campaign and General Flynn and the rest of it moving up the ladder. And given the natural disposition of the president, who is a fighter, who has very little patience, who is exasperated and angry, and who is a man of action, my guess is he's going to find a way to have a confrontation and see if he can't get rid of Mueller. But even if he does, Sean, can he abolish the special prosecutor's office? Now, we did that with Nixon, but the firestorm was so mammoth. Of course, our situation was much more serious. We had all kinds of indictments. But after the firestorm, Nixon had to reappoint a new special prosecutor, and the special prosecutor staff all came back to work with their papers. So I think, again, I don't see how we avoid, given the disposition of Trump, given where Mueller is headed, given who he's hiring, how we avoid a major collision coming down the road and probably pretty soon.
All right, Pat Buchanan, stay right there. We got to take a quick break. We'll come back and we'll continue 800-941-SEAN. All right, as we continue, Patrick J. Buchanan is with us. 800-941-SEAN is our number. You want to be a part of the program. All right, Pat, so my next question is, all the battles you see, here are Republicans in power and begging for power in the House and the Senate and the White House. They get it, and now we got the skinny bill opportunity on health care, and I know I speak for a ton of people. This is beyond frustrating.
Well, I think what you've got is the admitted, I don't think anybody can deny it, people who are skeptical about the Republicans or enthusiastic. It's a real failure of the Republican Party. I know it's a very tight margin with which Mitch McConnell's got to work, but when the party again and again and again votes to repeal Obamacare and to replace it, and first doesn't even have a plan to do so, and secondly, can't get anything through in 6 months when they control both houses of Congress, there's nothing you can say other than we admit that as Republicans we have failed. We failed to accomplish the first priority we said we would realize if you gave us power, and you gave us power in the White House and the Congress, both houses, and we failed you.
Well, I mean, there's no other way to put it. Do you think some of this is by design? Because I'm told, like, when the doors are closed in Senate meetings and other meetings, you've got people in there like Ben Sass and Flake and McCain at times and people like Lindsey Graham at times. They're just openly trashing the president. And it's like, what part of his agenda isn't conservative enough for you? Is it, building, well, maybe they don't like the border wall. Okay, an honest disagreement. But did they not promise themselves repealing and replacing? I look at the Republican Party now as a party without an identity. Are they the party of freedom, capitalism, liberty? Are they the party of security? Are they the party of energy? Are they the party of tax cuts? Do they not want the president's economic plan done? What do they stand for? Because the opportunity of a generation now stands right before them.
Sean, I talked to an old friend of mine with whom I was in battle with alongside a conservative back in the 60s. And he sent me a note and he said, Pat, besides the victory in the Cold War, which is a tremendous victory, what have we accomplished? I mean, if we're the party of small government and we're the party of the private sector, there's unquestionably government has grown mightily. The federal government controls 20% of GDP, state and local governments another 20% of GDP. Regulations control more of it. The intrusions into private life are enormous. The amount of freedom that people to live as they see fit is restricted. I mean, in terms of the long process since the New Deal or the Great Society, which one of those programs have we really cut back or eliminated? I don't think there's a single one.
Well, incrementalism has worked its way through, and Republicans I've never seen a group of people, whether Obama was in power or now, that have been so afraid of their own shadows, so spineless, and frankly lacking vision. You know what, Pat? I mean, John McCain took a shot at talk radio and cable television, and he said, our failure, I guess, is their livelihood.
Stop listening to the bombastic loudmouths on the radio and television and the internet. To hell with them. They don't want anything done for the public good. Our incapacity is their livelihood.
Our incapacity is their livelihood, as if we're responsible. You know what? I spent a lot of time, Pat, and we've known each other for a long time. I've had on a doctor that's talking about healthcare cooperatives, $50 a month concierge care for 5 years on this show. I've talked about health savings accounts for well over a decade, 10 to 15 years or longer. I've talked about the penny plan. Geez, that must be going on a decade too. I've talked about energy independence for however long. I've talked about education back to the states for however long. The need to identify evil in our time for however long. It's beyond frustrating that they don't, I didn't hear in any of this healthcare debate about health cooperatives, lowering premiums, health savings accounts. And I'm like, you people you don't offer anything.
No, they do not. And I remember, I go back all the way to the Medicare battle when there was a good Republican idea called Kerr-Mills, and the Republicans really didn't push it, and so Lyndon Johnson rammed his Medicare thing through. But 2 points here. Senator McCain, and we all wish him well in his current crisis, identifies the public good as what he and the Democrats can agree on, rather than what he and his party base can agree on. So we have different concepts of that, and to truth be told, I mean, the mighty, welfare state, neo-socialist welfare state, moves on inexorably. Sometimes there's a slight pullback, but gradually it moves on because every time the Democrats pass one of these Social Security or Medicare or Medicaid and they build in the growth of the entitlements, the Republicans retreat to a new defense line. There's never any rollback.
Sad. You're right. And this is the opportunity of a generation, and it could be squandered. That's sad. Pat Buchanan telling a lot of truth here, holding them accountable. The Sean Hannity Show. Thank you, sir.
You take it easy, my friend.